It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222, and your emails as well at randykabc@gmail.com. That's randykabc@gmail.com. Today we're going to try to answer a very simple question. How hard is it to tow an illegally parked RV in the city of Los Angeles? And to answer that question, we're going to be diving deep into yesterday's LA City Council Transportation Committee meeting, where they talked about a report that was actually commissioned by Ulises Hernandez,
quite frankly,
on how ineffective our current enforcement measures are. How ineffective? Oh, you're about to find out. First, let's hear from the chair of the Transpo Committee. Heather Hutt asks the chief parking officer of DOT, Brian Hale, some of the challenges that they face in their line of work.
Currently, it's difficult to figure out how to cite the oversized vehicles and even harder to get them towed. What challenges and policies or policy guidance do we need to have LADOT work on better with council offices and police commission on the issue?
Good afternoon, council members. Brian Hale, Chief of Park Enforcement and Traffic Control. With regard to the oversized vehicles and the challenges that we face, there are a number of them, certainly with regard to some operational concerns, as well as some policy issues that we've adopted as well.
All right, give it to us. Why is this so hard?
Specifically speaking to some of the challenges, there is, of course, initially, these oversized vehicles are restricted during the overnight hours to 2 a.m. to 6 a.m.
That's right. In almost every single part of Los Angeles, you're not supposed to be parking these things overnight. That's what RV parks are for. But we have tons and tons and tons, up to 4,000 illegally parked RVs, some operational, a lot non-operational, on the streets of Los Angeles, in neighborhoods like Sherman Oaks, in neighborhoods like Venice. Well, really, they're all over the place right now. So why is it so hard to get rid of them?
To 6 a.m. And so there is a officer safety component that is involved. We do encourage our officers to pair up in the evenings, ride together. But as many of you are aware, a number of these oversized vehicle locations are subject of encampments, and we have a number of criminal activity that occurs within those areas. And so we do.
Hold on a second. So we can't cite and tow the illegally parked RVs because they're in encampments with lots of dangerous criminal activity, and our transit officers at DOT don't feel safe. Oh my. That's an interesting one. Well, if we're not in a situation where we can put people in prison for that criminal behavior after Prop 36, after getting rid of Gascon, maybe. But yes, that would be an impediment. Anything else you can think of, Brian Hale?
Operationally, some of the other challenges officers often encounter the fact that the owners or motorists involved with these vehicles remove the license plates. They cover the VIN numbers, and so our ability to issue a citation is hampered in that regard.
So here's your fun fact of the day. If you remove your license plate and you hide your VIN, you can't get a ticket. You cannot get a parking ticket. You cannot get a citation. Now I don't feel so bad for being too lazy to put my new sticker on my car, but I will this week. I swear. Anything else besides the fact that the RV encampments are too dangerous to cite and tow, and we can't cite them if we can't see the VIN number, which they're blocking, and they took off their license plate? What else you got for us?
We are limited operationally as well in terms of the OPG capacity to store these vehicles. They are large vehicles, and
OPG is a police term for police garages. So there's not a lot of room.
Capacity to store these vehicles. They are large vehicles, and that presents a challenge in our ability to move them as quickly as we would like to remove them from the streets. As you know as well, there is often a mitigation that needs to take place in terms of some of the trash, debris that may be involved in and around the vehicles, and so before it can be removed, the Department of Sanitation needs to come in and mitigate those concerns, hazardous materials, to have those removed from the vehicle prior to an OBG feeling that the vehicle can be transported safely.
So we can't tow the vehicles because they are full of such hazardous material, whether that is human waste, whether that is drugs, who knows, but these things are so dangerous that they can't get them out of your neighborhood into a police garage until it is fully cleaned up. Anything else? So far, we've got they're dangerous. We can't cite them if they're hiding their VIN number. There's not that much room at the police garages for oversized vehicles, and these things are hazmat situations. Give me one more.
One of the other issues I would say is a concern is from a policy standpoint and the law, and the city attorney can certainly speak to this, is that our ability to remove these vehicles in the overnight hour is restricted in the sense that we need to be concerned with what's known as a community caretaking doctrine.
Oh boy. This sounds like an ordinance that the LA City Council passed to be pro-homeless. But if somebody's living in the dwelling, if they're living in the car, they're using it as a dwelling, the RV, well, now you've got to make sure that person gets all the services before you tow their illegally parked oversized vehicle that is either a drug den or a chop shop.
Essentially that a court order often is required for the removal of these vehicles if no other violation is operable in which we can have an exception to this community caretaking doctrine.
We can have all the laws we want. We can have all the ordinances we want. But if you have no actual way to enforce them, this is how you get over 4,000 RVs on the streets of the city of Los Angeles. It is too unsafe for the DOT officers to cite and tow because it is full of criminal activity. Sometimes they're hiding their license plates or they're covering up the VIN number, so I don't even know whose car this is. I can't give them a citation. There's not enough room. These things are hazmat suits, and they need a court order to tow any of them. If you're wondering why it's so difficult to get rid of these RV encampments, we're just getting started. Now, Ulises Hernandez has a lot of thoughts on this, and Ulises Hernandez has an interesting thought process for the ineffectiveness of getting rid of the RVs. Her thought is, well, we're wasting a lot of money even trying to enforce this, and that money should go to housing.
You can't get well in a cell.
But let's hear her out because there are a lot of problems here.
I just want to highlight the report for the folks that came to speak on oversized vehicles. I do hope you read the report so you can see that from 2018 to 2022, we spent nearly 2 million hours from the Department of Transportation in just giving out citations and dealing with these RVs. We've charged for what? Over 2 million hours for what? Because we still have a crisis of over 4,000 RVs.
That is true. I got to give her that. If all we're doing is citing and most people don't pay the citations and it's that hard to actually tow the cars, what are we doing?
Literally. We have put citations out for about $600,000 and haven't even, maybe we've gotten half of that money. Citations aren't working. It's hard to get citations because of the VIN number, the license plate. So what we have going on is not working. And it's not you all. We have directed the departments to do these things.
So Ulises Hernandez believes that if enforcing the law is not easy, we just shouldn't enforce it. Okay, then. Now, one of the things that she would like to do, and it's something that you've heard over and over and over again from so many different politicians, is we need to have identified different lots that the city owns that we can use as a safe parking site or a safe camping site. Well, how come we've heard that over and over again from so many different politicians, including the current mayor, including the last mayor, for 10 years, and nothing ever happens? Well, Let's find out what happens when Ulysses asks the Department of Transportation officials, so where are the lots that we can use for a 24/7 safe parking site so we could put all the RVs on city property?
What's the status for considerations to operate the safe parking program 24 hours a day? Have we, the city, made any headway in collaborating with our county, state, or other governmental agencies to find additional locations to operate safe parking programs?
Yes, can we move all the RVs onto city property? Why can't we do that?
The safe parking, we worked with LASA in one of our previous reports to develop a plan in terms of how to operate a 24/7 RV parking. They provided some guidance and steps of how to do so. Obviously, the challenges, as previously spoken, were the inability for folks to provide a valid driver's license, for the vehicles to be operable.
It is state law that in order to be in a safe parking site, whether you're in a regular car or an oversized vehicle like an RV, well, if you're driving that car, you have to have a driver's license. If you don't have a driver's license, you are breaking the law by operating that vehicle. But because we will not dare put people in prison for something like that. I mean, we don't put people in prison for much worse things. Well, we're kind of in this gray area where we cannot put them there because they don't have a driver's license.
The inability for folks to provide a valid driver's license, for the vehicles to be operable, also the restriction.
Oh, also, most of these vehicles are not operable. So they don't want to tow a derelict RV onto city property. That could be a hazmat situation. Plus, something tells me, and I don't know, this is just me spitballing here. Is it possible that the reason you always hear the city saying we're going to identify properties that we can put all this stuff on, we're going to move all the RVs to a safe parking site owned by the city, is it possible that the reason we still have never done that is because then the city is liable for whatever happens there?
Also the restrictions when it comes to the lots that are being identified with the zoning permitting requirements. So there's a lot of challenges with being able to identify them. As you currently know, the state parkings right now require individuals to have a valid driver's license, to have certain documentation. So that's another challenge that we face with this population.
So Ulysses, unfortunately, it doesn't look like you're getting your 24/7 safe parking RV site anytime soon, but she'll keep trying. I mean, I would rather have them on some city lot that's in the middle of nowhere than in front of neighborhoods, but apparently that's not happening anytime soon, and any other city property is most likely not happening as well.
So, Councilmember, if I may add to that, one of the other challenges that we face with safe parking operating 24/7 is where are those locations going to be? So if we're going to make use of city parking lots, you're taking away a parking lot that would normally serve the community, serve the businesses. People may park there overnight, so that's one obstacle.
So this is why you're not going to see a safe camping site or a safe parking site at, for instance, the parking lot for LA City Hall West or LA City Hall East.
The other obstacle is if you're looking at on-street parking.
You know how you, the neighbors of Los Angeles, the neighbors of Southern California, don't want these RVs in your neighborhood? The city doesn't want them on their property either.
The other obstacle is if you're looking at on-street parking, who is that on-street parking serving during the day? And so we have to take those into consideration. And it's very difficult to identify locations across the city to be able to say that, okay, this is an ideal location for a 24/7 operation.
There is no location that is ideal for this. Nobody wants this in their area. The city doesn't want it in their property. Neighborhoods don't want it in their property, but the city is the one that's supposed to be moving them when they're parked illegally, and they've decided to do nothing. Well, buckle up, everybody. We're just getting started here because I've got a lot more of Ulysses. I've got a lot of Tracy Park. I've even got some Kevin De Leon.
Quite frankly,
as we try to figure out why it is so hard to tow and dispose of these disastrous RVs that are plaguing the the city of Los Angeles. And it's about to get a lot crazier. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's a very special day as we're doing a deep dive into why exactly it is so hard to get rid of the over 4,000 RVs that are plaguing the streets of Los Angeles. This all took place at an LA City Council transportation meeting yesterday. Some of those members happen to be Ulysses Hernandez, Tracy Park, Heather Hutt. Oh, and of course, one of our favorites, Kevin De Leon is even a part of this.
Quite frankly.
In fact, let's take a break from Ulysses. Let's hear what Kevin De Leon has to say about clearing RV encampments in his district.
In Bow Heights, we had about 30 RVs there. And the reality is we did have some illegal activity. We had some gun running and crystal meth dealing too, right there. But we cleaned it up and we offered housing.
Sure, there was gun running and crystal meth dealing, but if you offer them housing, well, everything's going to be okay.
But if we're not creating or building the housing, quite frankly, there's nowhere for folks to go, ultimately at the end of the day.
A double at the end of the day, and a quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
KDL, I love you. And of course, there's this. If you can make sense of this, help me out.
So I think we have to be a little more clear with clarity, because I do agree. Ticket after ticket is nonsensical. It doesn't make sense. And ultimately, you don't have the financial, they're not going to pay for it. Then they're going to get a warrant is what's going to happen. And they'll be going to jail for ultimately being poor.
I thought you just said there was a bunch of gun running and meth dealing going on in the RV encampments, right?
In Bow Heights, we had about 30 RVs there. And the reality is we did have some illegal activity. We had some gun running and crystal meth dealing too, right there. But we cleaned it up and we offered housing.
Now, as you know, it is company policy here at 790 KABC. If Kevin De Leon gets mentioned, we have to play the pledge.
Madam President, today is Tuesday and time for the flag salute.
Mr. De Leon, can you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this morning?
Thank you very much, Madam President. It'd be an honor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Indivisible, pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. For which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The man we're going to miss him. He is definitely going to lose in November, and we're going to miss Kevin De Leon. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. Is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Your emails as well at randykabc@gmail.com. That's randykabc@gmail.com. Today we are doing our best to answer an important question. Why is it so difficult to get rid of all the derelict RVs plaguing the streets of Los Angeles? There are over 4,000 lining up neighborhoods in places where they're not supposed to be. You're not supposed to have any of these things parking overnight in most of Los Angeles. Why is it so hard to cite, tow, and destroy these RVs? Well, let's continue with the LA City Council transportation meeting, and at Ulysses we'll ask, why is it so hard to dispose of these RVs? You know, the ones that aren't even running.
And then last question for now, what have been some of the gaps or biggest challenges to purchasing RVs from owners and disposing of RVs?
Good afternoon. My name is Scott Moffett. I'm with Los Angeles Police Department. I'm the commanding officer of Commission Investigation Division. We are the regulatory arm of the Board of Police Commissioners, and we are responsible for administering the OPG contracts, which for the public, OPG is Official Police Garage.
So this is the guy that's in charge of the police garages, that's supposed to deal with the impounding, that's supposed to deal with everything else. Let's find out, what happens when an RV actually gets towed?
So as far as disposing of vehicles, there are certain legal processes. And actually, I'm sorry, I'm going to back up. I didn't want to invite myself up here, but to go to the process as far as the leases go, we've been in consultation with the mayor's office. We're taking a different approach because we're concerned about storage of the RVs. Obviously, that's an issue.
Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. So basically, over the last year or so, or every year, the OPGs tow about 1,000 RVs. Those were
1,000 RVs. Well, if we towed 1,000 RVs and we got rid of 1,000, this problem would be over in 4 years because there's only 4,000 of these things. Just you wait, people.
Those were the previous statistics. In December, on or about December 1st, the city entered into a contract with SA Recycling to dismantle and recycle inoperable or unsafe RVs. That was a contract that was signed by Chief Moore at the time.
And real quick, if the RVs didn't meet those qualifications, were they sold, or what happens with those that didn't meet the qualification you just said?
Ultimately, what would happen is they would just sit on an OPG lot. So they would not be, because they would not be able to be sold at auction. So to kind of take you through the legal process.
Wait, why don't we just destroy them? That's the whole point. These things are hazardous.
Kind of take you through the legal process when an impound occurs. If the vehicle is worth over $500, it needs to go through a legal process, which is called the lien process, if it remains unclaimed. So if the owner comes in and says, I'd like to claim my vehicle.
Okay, so if you remember, a lot of the people that dwell in these RVs don't even own them. They are renting them from so-called van lords. And you're about to find out how that process actually starts. Because when LAPD finally has enough, maybe they got the court order, they got the warrant, there was enough citations from DOT, they can finally tow the vehicle and put it in a police garage. If it is worth more than $500, which the components that are in most automobiles will be definitely worth more than $500, they have to go through a process and they have to auction it. They can't just destroy it. Why? Don't know. The bureaucracy is real.
If the vehicle is worth over $500, it needs to go through a legal process, which is called the lien process, if it remains unclaimed. So if the owner comes in and says, I'd like to claim my vehicle, they have to pay the towing and storage fees, and then their vehicle is released. If they fail to show up, the lien process occurs, which is the legal process in which those vehicles are either ultimately offered for sale. Basically, the OPG takes ownership of that vehicle. If they cannot sell it at auction, then it ultimately would become the ownership of the OPG. The OPG would be stuck with it.
So they don't want to clog up the police garages with all the RVs because who's going to get them at auction until there's a fire sale?
Then it ultimately would become the ownership of the OPG. The OPG would be stuck with it. But an important caveat of that is an OPG would sell those things for $50 if it would get it off their lot, and that's where you ran into the van lord situation. So,
okay, this is something that shocked me. It's something that I had no idea. So, RV is towed. RV has to go through a whole lien process where the LAPD and the police garage wants to get it off their lot because these things are big and they're hazardous and they're gross and we got to get rid of it. So, what the police garages have been doing is selling them to anyone that will buy them for $50. $50 gets you an RV. I don't know if it's running or not. It probably isn't. So you have unscrupulous characters who are now buying these RVs at $50 a pop, putting them right back on the streets where they were, leasing them to the homeless for $400 to $500 a month with the money that they're getting from General Assistance, Social Security, and Disability. And then when this whole process goes over again and the RV finally does get towed, the van lord goes back to auction and gets it for $50. This is the system that we have created, and this is why these things seem to be in a perpetual cycle, because we are not destroying them. We are not crushing them into a cube.
Important caveat of that is an OPG would sell those things for $50 if it would get it off their lot, and that's where you ran into the van lord situation. So
if you want to spend, I don't know, $500, get 10 RVs, have tenants that are destroying a street in a neighborhood. What do you care? You're cashing in. There are tons of people doing this in the city of Los Angeles, and it just keeps going over and over again. That's why we still have 4,000 RVs, even though they tow 1,000 a year.
What was happening at the time was those were being sold for very low price. LAPD, we were able to budget some money to reimburse the OPGs, so to sort of discourage the sale of those vehicles for $50. But then they were still getting stuck on the lot. So we entered into the contract with the recycler, and currently, year to date, we've dismantled, since December 1st, we've dismantled approximately 430 RVs.
Okay, then. Maybe this is starting to get a little better.
We've dismantled over 600 oversized vehicles, which would include that number of 430. Currently, you were asking earlier about storage space on OPG lots. There's currently 60 spots available as of today.
We have 60 spaces in the entire city of Los Angeles to tow the RVs to before they get dismantled. Every single step of this system is so broken, I wonder how we got here.
There's currently 60 spots available as of today. There's 60 spots available for RVs that could be stored on OPG lots. The OPG lots are about 85% capacity, though, so there's still that issue.
Thank you.
It is starting to make a little more sense why it is so hard to tow away these RV encampments. Holy cow. Even Ulysses is in shock.
And currently today, from what you've just described to me, and if I heard correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong, there's still a loophole for RVs that have been impounded to still find its way on a purchasing block of some sort.
Yeah, for $50.
Absolutely, because there's a legal process. So if it is worth over $500, which of course is difficult because vehicle components are valuable.
And if this is the legal process, you, the member of the LA City Council, needs to change that legal process, whether this is a local law or a state law. The way we are dealing with impound with RVs, not cars, this is nuts.
So, you know, an engine, transmission, those things are potentially valuable. So if it has to go to auction, so when the OPG has it, they have to offer it for sale. So the highest bidder could ultimately buy that vehicle. So there's still a mechanism in place for these things.
Okay, you know what we need to do then? Maybe there's a real simple way to deal with this. The city has a special fund to buy the RV from the LAPD. That's right, we're paying ourselves. And then we strip it for parts and we sell all the parts like the catalytic converter to the same recyclers that are selling all the ill-begotten catalytic converters. Excuse me. Catalytic converters. Is that what it is, Hugo?
You know, let's criminalize catalytic converters. Let's criminalize copper.
But at no point should we be auctioning off these RVs to the public, because that's where the van lords come in, especially when you can get an RV for $50.
So you're saying that we create these OVO zones. These vehicles get towed inside it. And even with all this that we do, at the end of the day, this RV can still be potentially sold back onto the street.
Legally, yes. Absolutely.
Great. Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, this is complete insanity. And of course, it's happening right here in the city of Los Angeles. When we come back, let's get Tracy Park's take on all this madness. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We are going through the LA City Council Transportation Committee, where we have learned that you, after getting a RV towed, finally off of one of these encampments, the police garage auctions it off back on the streets for $50 because they don't have enough room to store these things. Unbelievable. Tracy Park, tell us about one of the RV encampments that you had to deal with in your district, like the Bologna Wetlands.
At the Bayona Wetlands, which sits right on top of a huge gas storage facility, repeated homeless fires devastated our protected environmental sanctuary. Garbage was stuffed and septic tanks were drained directly into our storm drains, which lead directly to the ocean just a short walk away. Hypodermic needles were dumped en masse into our freshwater marsh and our protected reserve. And in 2022, there was a 266% increase in crime. Shootings, robberies, drug labs, chop shops, sex trafficking, the list goes on.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good night.
Our trees and vegetation and our wood-fenced walkways were all chopped down and burned.
When we come back, we'll hear what Tracy Park has to say about the fact that aren't we supposed to tow any vehicle that's illegally parked for more than 72 hours, including the RVs? It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. If you'd like to email me, you can do so at randykabc@gmail.com. Christy writes in and says, we'd be better off if Cousin Eddie was managing the derelict RV issue. Let's go back to Tracy Park about the 72-hour parking rule. Wasn't that supposed to be a thing?
Sounded like that was a yes. We are doing tickets for OVO violations, but what about 72-hour rules and other parking restrictions? Are we citing for those too?
Yes, we do mark the vehicles. Many of the complaints come through our abandoned hotline, in which case residents have called in and indicated this vehicle's been parked. In which case residents have called in and indicated this vehicle's been parked on my street for an exorbitant amount of time.
So you called to complain because there's an RV on your street and it's been there for days and days and days and days and days. And isn't a car supposed to move after 72 hours?
So the officer will go out, make note of the vehicle's location, mark it, return on a second visit to issue a citation if the vehicle has not moved.
And, you know, if they have the license plate showing and the VIN, otherwise we can't give the citation.
Most of the, I'll say, many vehicles are not operable, and so they have not moved. But the law is such that any movement, however slight, for a vehicle essentially eliminates our ability to issue a citation. And so
if they move the vehicle an inch, it technically was moved in 72 hours. Are you kidding me?
You have what's known as rockers and rollers who will deliberately move their vehicle in order to thwart, again, our ability to issue a citation.
So if they mark the vehicle to see if it's moved in 72 hours and it moves 1 inch, not going to happen. Now, how many tickets does it take before you actually can tow a car?
How many tickets does it take to make you eligible for impound?
Technically, it's only 5 or more outstanding delinquent citations. However,
so 5 tickets, it used to be, get ready for this, it used to be 5 tickets of illegally parking your RV and then we'll tow it.
Delinquent citations. However, we have suspended what's known as scofflaw enforcement as a result of some ongoing litigation.
Because we don't want to be criminalizing the poor here. They obviously can't pay their tickets, so yeah, we can't even tow them.
So we are still able to impound vehicles that have expired registration. It's over 6 months. That is one of the other areas in which we're able to remove vehicles, and of course, the 72-hour violation.
I think we figured out why it is so hard to tow cars in the city of Los Angeles and tow RVs in the city of Los Angeles, because the rules that were created make no sense. Bill in La Cañada, you got 30 seconds. Bill, hello.
Hey, Randy, as you know, Karen Bass is on a junket to Paris to learn how to host the Olympics here. And these RVs are blocking access to at least 3 of LA's DEI Olympics: the Ventura Boulevard Stolen Catalytic Converter Relay, the Barbara Ferrer Heroin Needle Hopathon, and the citywide sidewalk doo-doo hockey.
Well, then we're going to have to start getting a towing going on. Thanks so much for the call, Bill. Appreciate it. If you learned anything today, you learned that for many years, when we would tow these derelict RVs from the RV encampments, we would then put them out on auction for $50 just to get rid of them, so they enter back into the system. I know. Isn't it wild? And that's why I listen to these meetings. See you tomorrow at 5 for another News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC.